הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Orami, especially if it's your first time here ever or just in a long while. And welcome also to those who are joining from home through our live stream. We begin our service together in the middle of page 2 with the open door. May the door to this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for connection. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. And we continue with Shir Chadash.
Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru, Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash.
And we continue on the bottom of page 3 with 4 types of students. There are 4 types among those who sit before the sages: the sponge, the funnel, the strainer, and the sieve. The sponge absorbs all. The funnel takes it in at one end and lets it out the other. The strainer rejects the wine and retains the sediment. The sieve rejects the coarse flour and retains the fine flour. We continue on page 4. I'd like to invite up Lori to light our Shabbat candles.
As we kindle the lights of Shabbat, may the world be filled with warmth and radiance. May our hearts be filled with hope and joy. May our minds be filled with wisdom and understanding. And may our lives be filled with love and peace.
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
At this point in our service, we think of the week that has passed, and we hold on to all of the good things from this past week. So if you had an experience that inspired gratitude, if you have some good news to share, no matter how big or how small, I invite you to share that joy with the community now. Yeah, Ron?
I'm very grateful for the plum trees that just came into bloom and the narcissus every year after bloom.
Awesome. It's beautiful nature. Yeah, and Daniela? Very cool.
That's awesome.
Mazel tov. Anything else small that was cool this week?
Well, we're glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. And that she's not in isolation anymore. That's my favorite part.
So we thank God for all these blessings with the words of Shehechianu on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh
And we continue with the responsive reading near the bottom of page 5. Ben Zoma used to say, "Who is wise? Who is strong? Who is rich? Who is honorable?" And we continue on page 6 with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likraki krakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likraki krakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem multiferet l'iti la 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 la. Lecha lecha dodi, likaki kakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likaki kakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha. So ba'aseh b'machshavati la 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 lecha lecha dodi. Kakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likaki kakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela. He tore every, ki ba'ori kubi uri, uri uri shir daberi, kivod Adonai aniki la 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 lecha lecha dodi, likaki kakala. Pnei pnei Shabbat negavela, lecha lecha dodi, likaki kakala, pnei pnei Shabbat negavela.
And we rise together and face the entrance to symbolically welcome in the presence of Shabbat.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha usot cholach, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, la 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 lecha lecha dodi, kaki kakala, b'nei p'nei Shabbat nekabala, lecha lecha dodi kaki kakala, b'nei p'nei Shabbat nekabala.
We continue on page 8. Characteristics of the wise. There are 7 things that characterize a boor, and 7 that characterize a wise man. A wise man does not speak before one who is greater than him in wisdom or age. He does not interrupt his fellow's words. He does not rush to answer. His questions are on the subject, and his answers to the point. He responds first to things first, and later to things later. Concerning what he did not hear, he says, I did not hear. He concedes to the truth. With the boor, the reverse is all of this is the case. We continue with the official call to worship, the Baruch Hu, in the middle of page 8.
Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Yain and nine, 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 nine. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed.
Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We continue with the Shema on the top of page 10.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. You may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam בשבתך בביתך, וכלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem.
We continue on page 11 in the middle with the responsive reading. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, and with all your being. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up.
We do not teach our children by words alone. May I make my life an action to good teachings, for in my conduct I must exemplify Torah.
Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourselves to your God. I, the Lord, am your God, who led you out of Egypt. I, the Lord, am your God. And we continue on page 13.
Yai nai nai la 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 la. Yai nai nai la 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 la. Ya lai nai nai la 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 la. Yai nai 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 nai. Mi chamo chaba elim Adonai, mi chamo chane edar bakodesh. No ratihiloto seifele, no ratihiloto seifele. Yalla lai, ay dai dai la 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 la, ay nai nai la 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 la, yalla nai nai la 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 la, yai nai 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 nai.
We continue on page 14 with Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל
continue on page 15. Akavia ben Mahalalel used to say, "Know where you came from and where you are going." Hillel used to say, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, then what am I? If not now, when?" Please rise for our central prayer, the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasei Avot Ve'imachot, Umegi Gula Lifnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo V'Ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Yaakov Atarav leHoshia. Mechalkel Chaim bechesed, Mechayei Hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, B'shenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit u'mechaye, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol.
Please be seated. We continue with a quiet moment for personal prayer or reflection.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lecho hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'toch beinecha levaret et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
And at this point in our service, we think of loved ones who are in need of healing. Tonight, we think especially of Delphine Lewis, Royce Campbell, Macy Crawford, Gary Patterson, Jessica Crow, Amanda Furman, Jessica Gill, Marcy Horwitz, Beth Levine, Joel Moses, Rabbi Jerry Levy, Natalie Rayner. Are there other loved ones whose healing we wish to pray for tonight?
Ed Coleman, Elsa Friedman, and all of those suffering in Ukraine, Turkey, and Syria.
The power of community, we pray for their refuah shlema, the complete healing of body and or spirit. The words of Misha Berach on page 19.
Mishabera avotenu bekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishabera imotenu mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So at the beginning of this week's Torah portion called Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, comes to visit and offers his son-in-law some unsolicited advice. Tonight I'd like to have a discussion together about this moment in the Torah. And the first question for anyone to answer, no right or wrong answers, is when it comes to advice, do you feel more like Moses or more like Jethro? In other words, do you tend to give advice or receive advice more often? Or do you feel like it's about 50-50? Yeah.
If I have to be honest with myself, I'm probably more like Jethro, giving advice that is not unwanted than trying to listen to advice that I need to hear.
So there's something really fulfilling about giving advice, right? We're like, I have this wisdom to share. And I think a lot of us have moments where we're like, I'm excited to share what I can with this person who may benefit from this wisdom. Yeah.
Seeing yourself in other people and being able to tell them something that you can't hear yourself because it's hard to internalize.
So some things you can know are good advice, but hard to implement for yourself, right? You would tell a friend to do something in that situation, but would you do that? It's hard, yeah. Anyone else willing to admit to being a little bit of a Jethro, or at least being able to relate to him sometimes? Yeah. Does anyone feel like a Moses, where people are just always giving you advice, and you're like, thank you for that feedback? So Ron, you had your hand up?
I was just going to say, I have a 100-year-old cousin who says the most important skill in life to learn
So important life skill to bite your tongue.
And so that's probably has to do with giving advice.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't want to hear advice unless it's couched in very gentle and unassuming terms.
Mm-hmm. So advice has to be delivered very gently in a particular manner for it to be well received. Daniela?
Yeah, I feel like I'm really shy at first, so I feel like people just think I'm just like want all this advice. And they're like, oh, she's receptive. And then once I get to know somebody, I become like, I think overwhelmingly like, did you know this? Did you know that? Like, I think it depends on the situation for sure, and the person, right?
Mm-hmm. So the same person could be a Moses in a situation where they're new and not as comfortable and maybe like kind of observing before they jump in. And then in other situations, that same person could be Jethro and be the one like, oh, let me tell you everything about how this works. Yeah, Ariana?
I was just going to say I can second that. I have had experiences where I come in and people will seat me and have that like, oh, I can explain everything to you. You don't know anything. Like having to hear all this unsolicited and like thoughtful advice because they assume I don't know it. And then when I come and I start talking, open my mouth, they're like, oh, because I come out with like some wisdom or like I have some insight that they weren't expecting because they made assumptions.
Mm-hmm. So kind of getting back to Ron's relatives' wisdom, bite your tongue, right? Maybe don't automatically assume that someone doesn't know a lot of the things you know. It's hard to gauge when someone's a complete stranger to you or an acquaintance. Friends, we might say like, hey, let me give you advice on car repairs, because I've been through this a lot and I know that you're not a car repair person. But other things, they don't need any advice. Yeah, Ron?
So, for instance, it was much easier for me to say, my cousin says that the most important thing you need to learn is how to bite your tongue, rather than my saying, look, the most important thing you have to learn.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point. And if you look throughout this service, our Shabbat of Wisdom, it's full of quotes from Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our ancestors. And many of these teachings come in the form of like, Rabbi so-and-so used to say in the name of some other rabbi. So it's a little more gentle to say, hey, I don't think that I am, the source of all wisdom in this universe. Let me tell you how to do things. But you can say, someone else once told me this. I found it helpful. It might be helpful to you as well. Maybe not, but there's a little more humility, right, when you're passing down someone else's advice rather than just bossing everyone around, tell them how they should live their lives. Yeah, John?
So I have to say that my mother was like the world champion advice giver.
Mm-hmm.
Challenging me to find someone better. And the experience of living with her taught me that you can graciously receive advice. Doesn't mean you have to heed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very important piece is there will be times when someone offers advice that we don't feel that we need or we may already know, but we don't have to be rude about it and say, I know I'm not an idiot, like why are you telling me this stuff? You can be gracious about it and say, like, I really appreciate that you took time and energy to help guide me through this, or just nod and smile, right? And then do what you want to do anyway. So, yeah, Ron?
That's why we have the fifth commandment.
The fifth commandment to honor your parents, right? So they've lived a whole lifetime before you existed, and they've got a lot of wisdom to share, and sometimes that will be annoying, right? Ariana?
I think, like, I could just follow up with that, just being like, I've done the same thing, like, working retail and just in business in general. It's sometimes simpler just, yes, manager, I understand what you're saying, cool, I'll do that, and just do what makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you have the experience of doing it, they have the experience of telling you what to do. It's not, there's obviously sometimes they do have some actual something like, okay, yeah, that's cool, I will implement that. But a lot of times it's simpler to just learn how to do it and just get it done and not worry about the details. Usually those fall in place if you just do it.
Mm-hmm. So learning to be like the 4 students, the one who retains the valuable information and kind of lets the others trickle away and doing what you know is best in that situation.
Like, you need
So get the core of it. Yeah, Ron?
I had an uncle who was surrounded by women, his mother-in-law, and his wife. All of them continually gave him advice. And on his 90th birthday, one of my male cousins said they had always admired Uncle Saul because he accepted very graciously every single piece of advice he got from any of the women in his life, and then he did as he damn well pleased.
So again, learning to be gracious while receiving advice and deciding later what you'll do. Then the second question, we've a little bit touched on it already, but is, do you think that most unsolicited advice is helpful? Why or why not?
Couldn't height? It couldn't height?
Yeah,
Because you couldn't.
that's true. So,
You gotta be careful who you give it to.
mm-hmm.
I don't give it to my daughter-in-law, that's for sure.
So sometimes, and I don't know how much you want to elaborate on the reasons, but sometimes it's beneficial because someone might not even know what questions to ask. You're like, look, you're new at this. Let me kind of show you the ropes. Here's something that I stumbled with. Here's how I got my way out of that mess. Maybe you can avoid the same troubles. And then sometimes you can damage a relationship by offering unwanted advice, especially if they've made it clear already that they're not interested in your advice and they want to learn by making their own mistakes or just trying a different approach to something. Yeah, Ariana?
I was basically going to say something along those lines. I think it really depends on the context. There's obviously a place of condescension where unsolicited advice comes very much across as like, I do not need to hear any of this because you're clearly not looking at me as like somebody, as a person, or learn. You just see me as a vessel to put your emotions and thoughts into. And like, as like, you know, as from a teaching perspective, that is important, but like, there's a human there too.
Yeah.
But I think to follow up on the point you made about like being aware of people wanting to make their own mistakes, as somebody who's like uses like mobility aids and stuff, there's a lot of people who get very concerned and want to offer assistance. And I find it, I try to take it graciously because I understand people have a lot of concerns, but there's a level of like independence, especially as as somebody who used to have a lot of independence, that I want to force myself into even if it hurts. Because like it's nice to feel like I have some empowerment over my own body. Like if I need help, I will ask you, sort of thing. And like, I guess that is something I just want to stress is that people who need help, who seek advice, will seek it. And if you give it unsolicited, there is a context where that works. Like if they're clearly struggling and you've given them some time to wait it out, like that's one thing. If they've been at like 15 minutes, maybe just be like, hey, I saw you need, do you need some help? I just noticed you. Like be gracious about it, but like give them a chance to bail out. But on the flip side, like just coming in as soon as like you see somebody in a wheelchair and just following them through the store till they leave and just being like, hey, can I push you? And just grabbing them, it's like, that's a lot of assumption baked in.
So getting back to that graciousness, so you can graciously receive advice or assistance, and then you can be gracious about not offering it too soon, right? You might say to someone in a wheelchair, right, like even though it's going to hurt their arms later, right, they want to be wheeling themselves up the hill because we have dignity and we want to do everything we can because we're human beings. We all have that same need to feel empowered in our lives. And only if you're like, uh-oh, this person's starting to slide back down the hill and might get hit by a car, like then you can say, is it okay if I help you? Like, I notice you're struggling.
Exhausted and just looking around and just being like, trying to just push themselves because nobody's coming to help. It's like there's a makes a bystander effect and overprotectiveness that has to be bought.
So it's challenging to navigate sometimes, knowing when to step in and when to let people kind of struggle through it, maybe get through it all on their own, or wait and say, I need help.
Key word there. Just treat people with respect and ask them, do you need help? Don't give it unsolicited. Just ask and see where it goes.
Yeah, so graciousness and respect.
Just let it be.
Good mottos. Yeah, another thing I think people struggle with is that it's hard to know sometimes the difference between someone sharing about a struggle and someone actually wanting advice. Sometimes that can invite someone to say, oh, let me tell you how to fix this problem, when they just want to tell you that the problem sucks. And they've tried pretty much every solution you are thinking of on the spot, because the problem might not be new to them. So we always want to be cognizant of that in our relationships. You could say, are you venting, or would you like any advice on this situation? Just to clarify. Yeah. Okay. And then the last question is there something that you learned to outsource, like Moses did? The advice that his father-in-law gives him is, you have taken on too many responsibilities for this community, like all on yourself. You think you have to solve every problem that the entire society is facing. You need to trust other people, find the most trustworthy people you can, and ask them to help you with different degrees of it. You can still say, I want to handle the most complicated legal cases as the chief justice here in Israelite society, but appoint some other judges to handle the more day-to-day, easy-to-handle conflicts, and then appoint judges over them who can handle a little trickier, but not the trickiest, and only handle the ones that no one else can figure out. So that's what his father-in-law tells him when he comes and sees how his daughter-in-law, or his daughter and grandchildren are living, and Moses, his son-in-law, is just at work all the time, solving every crisis, sitting there, judging all the cases, no time to stand up, walk, and do the other things that humans need to do. So do you have any experiences like Moses where you learned that it's okay to ask for help? Or why do you think many people struggle to ask for help or accept it?
So when I started grad school, I wanted to do everything myself. Like everything I will do, I can do it. I can handle everything. And then the sheer volume of reading you have to do is just astronomical. And I, was kind of falling behind on taking notes and stuff, and everybody else was too. And I had to learn to just take a couple friends and just trust that they know what they're doing as well. And we essentially just split up the readings and all of the writing we have to do. And then we just trust that each other is the expert on whatever they read that week. And then we get together and we teach each other the gist of it, and then we quiz each other and all that. And that was really hard to do because I'm very prideful about my work and my work ethic and all of that. And then giving that up was very hard, but then I realized that they care just as much as I do, and if you're nice enough and you're willing enough to let somebody else help you, it's probably going to be fine. If they're willing to help you, they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big deal, and it's been totally fine.
So kind of overcoming our pride and recognizing the shared humanity, right? That everyone also wants to succeed. So if there are people in your class in grad school that you can trust them, they made it into grad school, they know how to read, they know how to get the important points and to share those just as much as you do, so that you can help each other get through something challenging.
And there's no award for being the one who suffered the most. Ultimately, you all get the same degree. So that was a big lesson too.
So learning to collaborate and lift each other up. Right? Yeah. Lori?
I was just going to say, is President warm?
You don't have any experience delegating or trusting others. Yeah.
It's very freeing, I have to say, and it's really, really nice to have other people that can do what needs to be done, and everybody feels good.
Mm-hmm.
They can do what they're good at, I can do what I'm good at, and it has been very freeing.
Mm-hmm. So freeing personally to learn to trust others to do what needs to be done, and beneficial to relationships, right? When you stop trying to make everything the exact way you would do it and say, I trust that this person's going to do a good job, even if it's a little different than I would have, I've taken a different approach, the result is still incredible, and we've created something beautiful together because we've learned to trust and work on things and let people specialize. Yeah, Joanne?
You asked why we don't ask for help, or we would ask for help, and so
So I think a lot of people have experiences like that where either their parents emphasize independence. I was just watching something about a Montessori approach to parenting, and they make everything child height so that like very small children can go and get their own everything, including like metal forks. And you're like, that's the kid's 12 months old and they're like learning how to feed themselves with metal utensils. So some of us have that, encouragement to be incredibly independent, and that's reinforced by later experiences, like at work. Some work environments shame you for asking for help, right? And they're like, it's on you. You're the only one here on this shift, so you better figure it out. Instead of saying, let's have a system where it's okay for everyone to be a little bit vulnerable and say, I've never done this before, or the last time I tried it, I didn't feel great about the way it went. Like, do you have any tips to make it better next time? So I think that can be a struggle, is just having a lot of experiences that say independence, 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 or you're a failure, right? Sometimes we have that voice in our head that's like, if I can't do this myself, then I'm a failure. Instead of saying, how can I succeed using all of my resources, including my community, my friends, my family, strangers who are willing to help when I need it. Yeah, Ariana?
I guess, like, I was gonna get into being kind of a latchkey kid myself, I was gonna get into multicultural aspects of, like expanding on that a bit of, like, I think as a culture, like, overall in America especially, is, like, a lot of hyper-individualism. That's, as I've been going through, like, trying to figure out disability, figure out my own, like, experiences of having to be independent and being independent, and having to relearn having to ask for help, relearn having to rely on trusting others, and having so much struggle with that. I realize more and more that the communal stuff of like coming to synagogue is enriching and empowering for me, and how it frustrates me is so many other things are focused in on like medicalization and taking away dignity and agency and putting it on you to fix your own problems, not reaching out and being like, hey, I see you're struggling, what do you need help with? I've been fighting with HR and insurance companies and unemployment and 20 other organizations and I've had to be my own medical manager and take care of stuff around the house and find therapy and go to therapy and work on myself and come to synagogue and go to other places and hang out with friends, but also send emails. And my own full-time job is just managing my life, and that feels utterly ridiculous. When we have so many people in our lives that we could ask for help, and so many people who should be caring about us or willing to help us, just choosing not to because it is our problem and not theirs. We all have kind of blinders on like some of the things that we just let slide, and being outside of that, we have a lot more perspective on how that hits other people, how that affects other people, and I just keep ruminating on like why do we have to be this way? We can just choose to not be, and we keep choosing things that cause more harm because in the short term really more stable.
Yeah. I think you bring up some important points about like the hyper individualism of American society today. And there's so many different human experiences. Long ago, including when much of Jewish tradition was forming, it was a very communal experience. Everyone knew, like, if there's an orphan, everyone chips in to make sure that orphan has food and can even have a nice wedding. And after kind of certain period in Europe, when you start thinking more about the individual rather than the community, and that influences American culture to a large degree, that a lot of people are living without that support and with that message of, I have to fix this myself, and if I can't fix it, then it's just going to be broken, instead of saying, like what we try to have at the synagogue, which is, we're all going to have difficult times in life, and it's okay for us to reach out and say, this week I need some matzo ball soup, and like when I'm better next month, like I'm going to bring you soup if you get sick, or I'm mourning a loss and I want some advice on, how to move into the next chapter of my life without this person, right? So there's a lot we can offer each other, but sometimes we have to struggle a bit to overcome that hyper-individualistic mindset. So I want to make sure anyone who didn't get a chance to share much already has a chance, and then Deb?
I was just going to talk about when I was working on the
Mhm.
So, luckily, my management, recognized that and rewarded me for it, so it turned out fine. But there were some people who I had to say, look, we're in this together. We can do better if we talk to each other and share our ideas.
Mhm. So sometimes we have the hyper-individualism and a scarcity mindset of there's only so much praise and recognition to go around, so I have to keep my best ideas to myself. If I share them for the benefit of the whole group, then I lose that. And that could be one reason. There's like a fear of not having their needs met or losing something valuable. So we have to work extra hard to learn to collaborate, and it's good that your boss had that approach and said, let's work together here rather than each person for themselves. Ron, and then we'll wrap up.
Say that Yitro gave Moses really good advice, and I'm glad he took it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. I think it could have ended very differently. How many movies or books have you, or real life examples have you seen where mother or father-in-law comes in, offers unsolicited advice, and that creates conflict in the family? Here, Moses is very gracious. He listens. Even though the beginning of the advice, a lot of people might have been turned off by that, because he basically is like, what are you doing, right? You're sitting here all day trying to solve every problem by yourself. But Moses is like, explains it, and then they are both really listening to the other and trying to figure out how they can create a solution together rather than disempowering one party or the other. Okay, so thank you for engaging in this discussion about this part of our tour portion. I'd like to invite up Lori. We're only inviting up Lori's tonight. To share some brief announcements on behalf of the board.
And Ron, too. Shabbat Shalom. Tomorrow, Saturday, there's going to be Torah study at 11 a.m., both in person and virtually. Tuesday night, February 14th, happy Valentine's Day. There's Orami Crafters will be meeting by Zoom. Next Friday night, there will be a Jewish meditation prior to the services at 7 o'clock, and that'll be in person and Zoom as well. So a couple other great announcements that we're having is on Friday, February 24th, at our Shabbat service, we're going to have a guest speaker and two panelists, and they're going to be talking about what it is like to be transgender, and also a parent of a transgender child. And this is part of our grant program on gender diversity in our community. And then also exciting on March 10th is it's a new person. We're going to be celebrating our new members, and we're also going to have our Purim celebration so that we all can get dressed up. And so we're hoping you'll all be coming on Friday, March 10th. And then Ron's here to talk about movie night.
I'm not in charge of movie night. Russ Jennings is, but he only sends out the announcements to people who come to movie night, and I think we need wider distribution of the knowledge about movie night. The movie is going to be on Sunday, February the 19th, right here, 6 p.m. We'll have a potluck dinner, and it lasts about half an hour, and people often keep eating during the movie. And then at 6:30, we're going to begin a movie. The movie for this month is called Late Marriage, and it's a 2001 movie set not in the state, in the country of Georgia, and it's spoken in the Georgian language, which I've never heard before, with subtitles, of course. And it's about the son of Jewish parents with a young woman, and unbeknown to them, he's already having a love affair with an older divorced woman with a child. And so you can imagine that sets the scene for interesting discussion.
Right. Thank you, Ron and Lori. We continue our service together with Aleinu. On page 20, please rise for the Aleinu prayer.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tegelu la liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'yei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpechot ha'alma, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'cho hamonam, Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamnachim hakadosh baruch hu v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu Mayom hahu yihye Adonai echad ushemo echad.
At this point in our service, we think of loved ones who have passed away recently or at this time in years past. Tonight we remember with love the recent passing of Helen Nelson, mother of Nancy Nelson, Susan Sardi, sister of Maxine Hadley, the yahrzeits of Grace Amos, mother of Beth Levine, James Guider, grandfather of Phoebe Guider, and Lillian Levine, mother-in-law of Beth Levine. Are there other loved ones we wish to remember tonight? Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing. Continue with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 22. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye jechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olomei almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yitrumam v'yit naseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit alev, v'yit halal, shemei kudasha brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, dam iran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort for all who are bereaved, and let us say amen. And please be seated. We conclude our service tonight in the middle of page 23 with Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, salam.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
If you could kindly return your services to the table near the entrance and join us in the back for Kiddush and Motzi.